The new analysis by the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency is estimating North Korea now has nuclear weapons in its arsenal. That is the breaking news this hour. Republican Congressman Darrell Issa is on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, I'm glad you're here for the breaking news. We were going to talk about other things. We have moved those off the table now to yield to this. I want to share with you what Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said just days ago to North Korea, via the airwaves. We do not seek a regime change. He made that very clear. Why is that so important in terms of getting the information out for our allies to jump on board with this?
Well, Rex is doing exactly the right thing. The Secretary understands that this is very much like 55 years ago when John F. Kennedy and his administration faced the Cuban Missile Crisis. You may not want him as a leader. We didn't want Castro as a leader. But you have to say to the world, and particularly to their benefactors, which is in this case China instead of Russia, that you must understand this is something we will not tolerate, and diplomatically or if necessary through force, we are going to stop it. This was the greatest challenge, perhaps, of John F. Kennedy's administration. This is a very similar moment. These are the days that will test Rex Tillerson, Jim Mattis, and the President, because it is exactly like the threat we had more than half a century ago that was faced down diplomatically, but with the explicit potential use of force if that fails. And as Secretary Tillerson goes around, that's the message he has to say, is that we cannot tolerate it. This is not a moment in which we can have long deliberations or some sort of aid program to woo him away from it. This is exactly where we were 55 years ago, and we can't tolerate it.
And we can't flinch, because as you just heard our reporter Greg Palcott, who's been inside behind the curtain, as I put it, of North Korea and seen some of what's going on there in terms of the people on the ground, strength is what they respect, even their citizenry, because they know what their leader is like. So how do we show strength, Congressman, without going to war?
We show it by showing the trading partners, the people who in some cases, and that's what this sanction's about, have been using what amounts to slave labor, North Koreans who work for nothing but food, and the money goes to North Korea to fund their hard money requirements. The United Nations Security Council voted unanimously to stop it. And that means that Secretary Tillerson is backed by the entire United Nations, including the explicit permission of China and Russia to cause an end to that funding, which begins to, if you will, put the kind of pressure we've not previously put on North Korea. One thing about North Korea is if they have $4 billion in hard money, they will spend it all on weapons. So we cannot assume that a minor sanction will change their way. Only a true major sanction, one that cuts off aid to his generals and changes his calculus on survival. And that's what we're doing, and we're doing it with the kind of soft power that I don't think we've seen in a long time, power of diplomacy, but absolute, as you said, Harris, unflinching power of diplomacy.
I want to talk about the roles of Russia and China right now. Russia and the investigation and all the focus that's been put into that here recently. They now are very critical players in this whole situation, because Nikki Haley, our ambassador at the UN, said thank you to China and Russia for supporting the sanctions against North Korea.
And this is the reality of diplomacy, and I think the American people understand it. On one hand, you may call somebody an evil empire. On another hand, you can call them an unfair trade partner. But when it comes to managing a world at peace, you have to look at the major powers, which include Russia and China even more so today. And you have to be able to work past your differences when it's keeping people out of an atrocious war. 70 years ago in the 1950s, 600,000 or more Chinese died defending North Korea. North Korea could not have survived the Korean War. The conflict was ended at a stalemate because China intervened. And China is well aware that if they don't intervene in favor of North Korea will fall. And that's really why China's vote was so critical. It said to North Korea, enough.
Wow, Congressman, it really is chilling to hear you compare history that wasn't all that long ago with what we're going through today. It puts it in such precision and clarity. I want to talk with you about how politically ready we are, because you hear about authorizations in Congress and can you all get on the same page about anything? Are you on the same page about North Korea?
I believe we are. I know many of my Democratic colleagues on the Armed Services Committee, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, candidly, even on the Intelligence Committee, and we've all looked at much of the same data. We, the House, under Chairman Ed Royce, we added the North Korean sanction language to the bill that the President signed, and he signed it without reservation. So I think what you've seen is broadly House and Senate bipartisan behavior coupled with the President more than acquiescing, but recognizing that all the other challenges are important, but this is one that is time sensitive. We must stop North Korea now, or the South Korean people and be honest, the American people face a threat we cannot tolerate exactly the way, and I said it for a reason, this is the equivalent of John Kennedy's moment for President Trump, and he and his administration so far are rising to the challenge in the way the American people want to see.
Well, and the American people want to hear that confidence. They need to hear that confidence because, as you lay this out, this is different than a fight over something that might be, you know, policy that will roll out down the road. This is immediate and life-threatening if they can reach us with what I'm reading about. We've got a general coming on deck a little bit later to talk about our Minutemen and all that we're ready for. But, sir, we appreciate your time on what we're ready to do politically and what it looks like down the road in that regard. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be able to report we are a bipartisan group on these issues.
Got it. Congressman, thank you.